evening, everyone. My name is Nancy Petrin. I'm the Spiritual Life Coordinator here at Ensō Village, for those of you who I may not have yet met. It is my pleasure to introduce this evening your Richard Payne, Ensō Village's Richard Payne. Richard received his PhD in 1985 and taught at the Institute of Buddhist Studies from 1993 till 2023. Are you making faces, Richard? He was ordained as an ajari, or acharya, priest in the Shingon sect of Japanese Buddhism in 1983. He is currently Professor Emeritus and continues his academic work, including as editor of the Oxford Encyclopedia of Buddhist Studies. Thank you very much for being here tonight, and thank you very much, Richard, for saying yes.
Thank you very much, Nancy, excuse me, for assisting to coordinate this evening's event. I'm going to cough again. Good. Thank you. I would also like to thank Susan O'Connell for kindly inviting me to give this presentation, Nick Flores for his assistance with the AV system here, and Paul, who filled in at the last minute, getting everything coordinated. Thank you. And to all of you for being here this evening, taking the time to join us. So the arrival of the statue in the meditation hall has given rise to a lot of questions. I had some myself. And apparently many of those questions focused on the multiple hands with their varied implements. So tonight I'd first like to talk about who is Avilokitesvara, which is the name that I will probably use most often. It's the Sanskrit name, but I'll probably fall into throwing out other names as we go along, and hopefully you'll be able to keep up. I'll explain what the name means and what it is to be a bodhisattva. Then I'd like to take a closer look at the various implements which indicate teaching, compassion, and protection. And third, we'll look at various forms of Avilokitesvara across Buddhist societies. Because Avilokitesvara is identified as distinctly Northern Buddhist, that is, great vehicle tradition, Mahayana, associated with Central and East Asia, Tibet, China, Japan, Korea, and so on. But Avilokitesvara exists across Buddhist societies everywhere, in South and Southeast Asia as well. Locations often thought to be somehow exclusively Theravada. But compassion is a value found from the earliest times in Buddhist thought and practice. The discourse on loving kindness, the Metta Sutta, says in stanzas 7 and 8, I point that out because I wrote it down, just as a mother would protect her only child with her life, even so let one cultivate a boundless love towards all beings. Let him radiate boundless love towards the entire world, above, below, and across, unhindered, without ill will, without enmity. But what we're looking at tonight is not just compassion as a value, or as a goal, or as a feeling, but the figure of Avilokitesvara as such, who has existed across all of those regions where Buddhism has become an important, maybe not dominant, an important part of the religious tradition. The many forms provide protection, including human forms. And we'll close by considering what this statue may mean to us today here in a small contemplative community in Northern California. So across all Buddhist cultures, many names and many forms evidence the importance of compassion. Kannon in Japanese, Guanyin in Chinese, Chenrezig in Tibetan, Avilokitesvara in Sanskrit, Lokanath in Pali. And the title Bodhisattva refers to one who is on the path to awakening and who awakens others. So this one figure reveals a unifying thread throughout the many different societies, cultures, and languages where Buddhism has been established for over 25 centuries. In its many forms, the name means the Lord who looks with compassion upon those suffering in the world. And I know that there was some discussion last weekend about the meaning of the term Lord. This is not the same as the meaning of Lord God, but rather a statement of esteem, of appreciation, of valuing and honoring someone. So this is an honorable person who looks down upon all the suffering beings in the world with compassion. So standing on the threshold to nirvana. According to tradition, frustrated by the seeming infinity of beings to save, Avilokitesvara felt his body and head split apart. But his guiding Buddha, Amitabha, restored him, giving him 1,000 arms and 11 heads, Amitabha's being the topmost. The 11 heads express all moods and see in all directions. Each of the 1,000 hands has in its palm an eye of wisdom, symbolic of Avilokitesvara's perfect fusion of compassion, discernment, and skill in assisting suffering beings. And just think of what it would mean to have something as sensitive as an eye in the middle of your palm. And at that time, Avilokitesvara made the Bodhisattva vow, which is to delay entering into full nirvana, that is, to cease producing or be affected by karma, and instead to remain in the round of suffering, here in the realm of samsara, until all other living beings were also awakened. Go. Just go. Come on. There we are. So, this is the top, the 11 heads, into which Avilokitesvara's head exploded when frustrated by the amount of suffering in the world. The main one at the top is Amitabha, who is the Buddha of unlimited light. And our Kannon in the meditation hall is to the right. And you can see the head of Amitabha on the very top behind the small standing statue at the front. So, this is the Kannon statue in the meditation hall here. One of many standardized representations. 42 hands hold implements indicating teaching, compassion, and protection. And so some of the particular implements. Okay, one of the implements is a bell. And it said that the fading sound reveals inconstancy. And yes, we start meditation sessions by ringing the bell 3 times to say this is the start, and then we ring it 3 times again to say this is the end. But the bell communicates by the sound fading away. The sound is not permanent. It is inconstant. It only exists as a result of causes and conditions. And when the bell stops vibrating, when the conditions change, the sound changes as well. So the bell teaches us about inconstancy. Okay. Another one of the implements is the wheel of the Dharma, the wheel of the Buddha's teachings. This is the 8-spoked wheel, very, very common symbol throughout Buddhism, representing the 8 stages of the path. Right view, right intention, right speech, right conduct, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So view and intention talk about our understanding of the world. Speech, conduct, livelihood talk about how we behave in relationship to the world, to others, and to ourselves. Effort, mindfulness, and concentration specifically address meditative practice, learning to pay attention. It is also the sword of wisdom that Manjushri, the Bodhisattva of wisdom, holds in one hand. You may have seen representations that hold a sword in one hand and a flower with a book on the other. That's Manjushri, the Bodhisattva of wisdom. The sword cuts away delusions. Another one of the implements is a string of beads, a mala, used for maintaining focus when reciting the name of a Buddha or Bodhisattva, that is, a mantra. Now, malas come in different numbers of beads, and different numbers of beads are given different meanings. But it's also used, as in the case of our statue, in the center there on the right, to indicate that one seeks to be mindful of one's actions, guided by the teachings of the Buddha. So one is restrained by the teachings of the Buddha. One voluntarily takes on the discipline involved. And this is what that symbolizes. And so the Bodhisattva also has a mala indicating his adherence to the teachings as well. One of the other implements, in this case at the very center of our statue, is a begging bowl. Okay? The begging bowl is used for receiving offerings by mendicants. Traditionally, Buddhist priests, Buddhist monks, and nuns wandered in the morning through villages collecting food offerings into their bowl. Had a meal one time a day, and then spent the rest of the day in meditation or sewing their robes or cleaning, what needed to be cleaned and so on and so forth. But this symbolizes a dependency upon the community, that we are not independent. In order to be fed, we depend upon each other. The medicine Buddha is portrayed as blue, holds a medicine bowl with a cap on it that contains the medicine. The blue color runs through a lot of Indic culture. And it indicates that this person has the power to absorb poison and transform it. Sometimes the Garuda, the peacock, is portrayed with a blue throat because by legend, peacocks are able to eat poison. They eat snakes. They eat poisonous snakes. Right? So consuming poison, transforming it, is represented by the blue color of the medicine Buddha, who holds, rather than a begging bowl, a medicine bowl with a cap. Another item that some figures hold is the pearl of wisdom, such as this Guan Yin on the right is holding the pearl of wisdom. In some cases, that's held in the palms, as well as the begging bowl and the medicine bowl. And the pearl of wisdom is associated very strongly with dragons. You see it there. The pearl flames. It burns away ignorance. And it's transformative. And dragons have a tendency to hang on to them. Our statue also, like many 42 armed forms, holds two staffs. One represents renunciation. This is a mendicant's staff. And you can see the rings attached at the top. And those make a sound, obviously a ringing sound as one walks, and the rings jangle. And the point is that you didn't want to accidentally come up on a tiger in the path, or a robber. So by ringing the staff as one walked, one gave notice that one was coming. This is a very, this staff also appears on one of the bodhisattvas who is associated with protecting children in particular. Jizo Bodhisattva. Thank you, yes. Jizo. Shitagarba, the earth store Buddhism. So the two staffs, one of them is the renunciate staff, and one is a halberd. It was a little frustrating to find so many different kinds of halberds. So the picture that from the set that I located showing the different implements in the various hands had a halberd that looked like this. The one in the statue, the one held by the statue in our meditation hall looks like that on the right. Okay? But this is a symbol of power, authority, and the ability of Avilokitesvara to protect followers. Another one of the implements is a mirror. And just as the bell indicates inconstancy because the sound fades away, so also does the mirror show us inconstancy. It reveals the conditioned nature of all things. The reflection only appears when the mirror is in the right location. If you move the mirror, it's not there. There are stories that talk about polishing the mirror. And basically for decades, I was really kind of confused by this. And many years ago, I was in Kyoto. I was there at a time, fortunately, wandering through a neighborhood where there is a museum of Chinese bronzes. And this museum is only open 3 months out of the year. So it was just excellent. I thought, oh, how cool is that? I get to go into the museum. I'd been there, lived there, and never gone in. Now I was visiting again, I got to go in. And I'm wandering around looking at all these cool bronzes, and there is a large display of Chinese bronze mirrors. And what finally sunk in was that a bronze mirror tarnishes. Right? For it to be used the way we use a mirror, it has to be polished, it has to be kept clean, it has to be kept shiny, it has to be able to reflect. Very different from our, glass and mercury mirrors. Right? Those you got to clean, but it's a little Windex and a sponge and paper towel. But to keep a bronze mirror working, to keep it shiny, was a lot of work. You had to really work at polishing the mirror. Another one of these kind of martial implements is a lasso, which again has various forms. The one on our kanon, you can see just to the left of the flower, with the little rings on one end of the loop of rope. And this is used to catch those who run in fear of the teachings of inconstancy. Not everybody is really happy to learn about inconstancy. Not everybody is really happy to learn about impermanence, about no self. And so this is used to catch those who would run in fear and to help them slow down, stop, wait a minute, stop running from this. Interpret it. So bodhisattvas are practitioners moving toward awakening. And it's for this reason that before his awakening, Shakyamuni is called bodhisattva, right? Frequently. But bodhisattvas, having made the vow, also help others to attain awakening. So they are beings who awaken themselves, and they're beings who awaken others. But a bodhisattva, being on the way to awakening, is portrayed as a royal prince. He is heir to the throne of the Buddhas, which you can see here, the lotus throne, upon which Avilokitesvara is seated. And because he is a royal prince inheriting the throne of the Buddhas, he's portrayed with crown, necklaces, earrings, bracelets, scarves, anklets, and so on. All of these are symbolic of what a young Indian prince would have been bedecked by in India at the time. So, those are some of the qualities represented by the different implements and aspects of the figure, particularly the figure of Kannon, with 42 arms and 11 heads in our meditation hall. But there are many, many forms found across the entire Buddhist world. The variety of cultural expressions demonstrates the importance of compassion for all Buddhist traditions, but as I mentioned, it's not just the quality of compassion that is valued, but the figure of Avilokitesvara is found throughout the Buddhist world as well. So here are three representations of Avilokitesvara from Southeast Asia. From Thailand, on the left, 7th to 8th century statue. From Cambodia, in the center, mid-7th to early 8th century. And on the far right is a southern Thai representation from 8th to 9th century. So this is an illustrated manuscript of a large collection, from a large collection of texts called the Perfection of Wisdom literature. And here, in this illustrated manuscript, is a portrayal of Avilokitesvara teaching a female devotee. This illustrated manuscript is from early 12th century from Bengal. In Tibet, Avilokitesvara, known there as Chenrezig, has the 6-syllable mantra that is widely familiar to many people. That's the mantra of Om Mani Padme Hum. And the term mantra is often used almost disparagingly. Oh, so-and-so's mantra was, always just be happy, don't worry. No, right? That's not what a mantra is in its usage in Buddhism. The understanding of the power of language is such that the name and the mantra and the bodhisattva are all one. So that to recite the mantra is to repeat the name of the bodhisattva and to make the bodhisattva present. It was a way of making that quality present for oneself, reciting the mantra. And in western China, in the Dunhuang caves, Avilokitesvara is also found. This has Cave 45, which is a particularly devoted to Avilokitesvara, with this large mural on one wall. And if we look more closely, as here, in the background what we find are various forms that the bodhisattva takes when acting for the compassionate benefit of others. So that whole panoply of different figures are interacting with some manifestation of the bodhisattva. And sometimes compassion manifests in a ferocious form. We were once hiking in the Sierras and discovered that a mother bear and her cub were working on a downed tree between us and our friend who was on the other side, further up the path. And we thought, no, we're going to wait. Mother bears can be very, very ferocious. So we waited. They worked finding grubs from the tree, worked their way, and eventually went off, and we were free then to continue with our path. This is not the bear form. That would be, I don't even know. I don't think that there is a bear form of Avilokitesvara. There might be, and probably it's in the Sierras. This one is called Bato Kanon, the horse-headed Kanon. So in this case, Kanon as compassion is also identified with the Indian deity Hayagriva, the horse-headed deity of wisdom and learning, and is shown here in a very wrathful form. The horse head, again, it's on top of Bato Kanon's head. It's the figure up here. It's not a full horse head, but it's represented here on the crown of Bato Kanon. And this is what Hayagriva looks like. On the left is a Hindu representation showing Hayagriva in white, representing the power of wisdom. And Hayagriva was also popular in Tibet to the extent that there is a red, wrathful form of Hayagriva from Tibet. So there's one source in the Buddhist canon that talks about 33 different forms that Avilokitesvara takes, each one having its own special kind of protective function. This is a figure known as Water Moon Guanyin. In the figure on the left, which is from Korea, about 918 to 1392, the figure is shown seated on a rock rising from the ocean. The figure protects and heals, but the name is taken from the moon being reflected in the water moon, Guanyin. And this recalls the relation of image to actuality. What's image, what's actuality? What's in the water, what's in the moon? Again, reflection and what is reflected. What is temporary, and what are we deluded into thinking is permanent. Another one of the figures, in this case one that is very strongly feminine in nature, is the figure of white-robed Guanyin. This is from about the 10th century China, The figure is from about 10th century, not this particular picture. The poem says, this is a poem about the white-robed Guanyin, Avilokitesvara in the white robe. The actual body of Guanyin is neither male nor female. Even the body is not a body. What attributes can there be? Let it be known to all followers of the way, do not cling to form. The Bodhisattva is you, not the picture or the image. And white-robed Guanyin is thought to be related historically, culturally, to the Tibetan figure of White Tara, about whom we have the story regarding the vow that Tara made, possibly from the 16th century. Once, long ago, the woman who would become the goddess Tara was a princess whose name was Moon of Wisdom. She was wise, compassionate, and devoted to the Buddha's teachings. A monk approached her and said, as monks were wont to do, "Because of your virtuous actions, you have been born in a human body. But unfortunately, it is a female body. If you want to attain complete awakening, pray that you will be reborn in a male body." Tara replied, "In this life there is no such distinction between male and female, and therefore any attachment to ideas of male and female is a delusion. It is foolish to be caught by such a notion." Then she made the vow that would carry her through to awakening. There are many who wish to gain enlightenment in a man's form, and there are but few who wish to work for the welfare of living beings in a female form. Therefore, may I, in a female body, work for the welfare of beings right until samsara is emptied. That is, until all living beings are awakened. So here I've juxtaposed Avilokitesvara and White Tara to show that the way in which the unity of the two is represented by the same mantra. 6 circles. These 6 circles are the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, that familiar mantra. So both figures have the same mantra, meaning that they have an identity. White Tara is Avilokitesvara, Avilokitesvara is White Tara. Some of the other forms that Avilokitesvara or Guanyin takes provide protection from thieves. One threatened by thieves will escape without injury. Seated on clouds represents being able to fly away without harm. Also protection from fire. If one is in danger of falling into a pit of fire, perhaps by robbers or brigands who wish you harm, that pit of fire will be converted into a pool of water, cooling and refreshing. Also protection from snakes and dragons. I mentioned the dragon who holds the pearl of wisdom. Not all dragons are really kind and considerate, and some of them can be pretty awesome. Koi, that is carp, can become dragons. When they swim upstream and leap over the dragon's gate, they're converted into dragons. So when Guanyin holds a basket containing a carp, it shows that she has power over dragons and snakes and carps and koi. Carps and koi, they're not so dangerous, but it shows that she has power over those otherwise dangerous residents of our world. I found a whole bunch of really cool dragon slides on the web, but I had to kind of limit things. There's also one of the functions of Guanyin is to protect those who are in danger of drowning at sea or from flood waters. Here you can see Guanyin standing on a boat made from a single leaf. And floating on that leaf, Kanon will assure that those at risk of drowning at sea will come to shallow waters, will find their way to the shore. And I learned this evening, thanks to Maya, that at the entrance to Eiheiji Temple in Japan is this statue near a sutra repository that is used for generating merit, or blessings if you prefer that terminology. So the story has it that Dogen, after finishing his time in China, embarked on a boat to return to Japan. And like many such figures in the history of Japanese Buddhism, a storm came up, and the boat was in danger of being overturned, of being thrashed, and everybody was going to drown. And Dogen called upon Kanon, and Kanon appeared in the leaf boat and calmed the waters, and the boat that Dogen was on made its way into shallow waters and was saved. So that story is represented at the main temple of Soto Zen in Japan, at Eiheiji, with this statue in the garden right at the entrance. And Avilokitesvara is also said to manifest in human form. Okay? In medieval China, there's the story of Princess Miaoshan, who was a female form, human form of Avilokitesvara. Now, Miaoshan is so famous in China that a modern television series was made of her life. And you put in Princess Miaoshan into a search engine and you get like 100 images from that television program. But you also get this really rather, shall we say, idealized, if not cheesy, representation of poster art based upon the actress from the television program. So this is still an active part of Chinese culture. Maybe cheesy is a little too harsh, sorry. Idealized. And upon her death, Princess Miaoshan is revealed to be Avilokitesvara in her 11-headed, 1,000-hand form. So when Miaoshan passed away, this is the figure that was revealed. Another more contemporary human form of compassion, human incarnation of Avilokitesvara, of Chenrezig, is the Dalai Lama. And Avilokitesvara resides in many places on this world, on this planet, with us. One of those is the Potala Mountain, which is the residence of Avilokitesvara. And across Asia, several mountains are identified as the location of Avilokitesvara's palace. The Potala in Lhasa is named for that mountain palace. What was the home of the Dalai Lama Lama. There's also Puto Island in China, which is identified as the residence of Avilokitesvara, and which is today a popular tourist destination. And Avilokitesvara also resides at the center of a mandala. So this is the Potoa in Lhasa, and when I had the opportunity to visit there and to go through the tour, I don't know if you've read any of the biographies, autobiographies. The Dalai Lama has published 3 autobiographies. And he talks about the little room that had a window that overlooked a courtyard, and how he would watch the sweepers in the courtyard and think about what it might be like to not be the Dalai Lama, to be an ordinary person and have the freedom. It's a very particular spot in those autobiographies. And I can assure you, it really exists. And it was like so astonishing to be there and to know this biographical detail and to stand and look out that window at the courtyard that the Dalai Lama reported he saw frequently as a child growing up in the palace. So on our right is a Tibetan tanka that shows Avilokitesvara on the Potala mountain, and on the left is a mandala representation of Avilokitesvara with his retinue surrounding him. And on the eastern coast of China is Puto Island. As I said, today it's a very popular tourist destination. And this statue is big, very big. I haven't had the fortune to go there. I had the fortune of having a student who studied this site. And you can see on the right-hand side the island, and the statue is large enough that ships at sea can see it and guide themselves to safety. Here, in Ensō, are many, many forms of Avilokitesvara. This is Avilokitesvara seated in a posture known as the royal ease, and this photo is taken from the lobby of the Meadows. Okay, but what about the statue? To express how the Bodhisattva Avilokitesvara has been understood over the course of almost 2.5 millennia, and across many linguistic and cultural boundaries, I've used the term manifest frequently. But I don't want to confuse you to think that I think that we need to imagine some transcendental being, something outside of ourselves, something that is a higher reality, or a deity who is to be worshipped and who acts for our benefit. Not something separate from each of us. I think the proper questions for us to ask: what is compassion? What does it mean to act compassionately? How can my actions be compassionate? Not an object of worship, but of inspiration. The statue in the meditation hall may inspire us to ask these questions of ourselves. And in doing so, the statue becomes our companion in practice. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. That was wonderful. I'm curious to know specifics about the statue that's in our Zendo, where it came from, how old it is, who made it, anything like that.
Funny you should ask. So I had asked the same question of Nancy, and she had connections with various people and was able to track down the following information. The statue was donated in 2021 by Reverend Tozan Thomas Hardiman, who died that year. He practiced at San Francisco Zen Center about 1990 to 1991. He received Jukai from Tenshin Reb Anderson before going to Japan, where he was ordained and trained by Kosen Nishiyama. Tozan had written that I had the statue shipped from Japan 25 years ago. Okay, so that was 1990, that was 2021, so toward the end of the 90s. I had it shipped from Japan 25 years ago, where I had lived for 7 years to my retirement home in North Carolina. Made in China, then shipped to Japan for sale, and finally back on the market when I found her. It is solid camphor wood. And he notes that it is probably 175 years old. So it was Chinese made for export to Japan, and then from there. And so his estate passed it on to San Francisco Zen Center. I never saw it myself, but I understand that it resided in the meditation room at the Ensō showroom in Healdsburg for a period of time before being moved here. And I think that I'm really happy that she made it.